Right there.
Chapter 7, Calvin.
Cricket.
Okay, I'm muting everybody so
Cricket.
you can just hear me. Okay, here we go. Chapter 7, Calvin. It's okay. Calvin had a big round face. Calvin, said Mrs. Jules, I want you to take a note to Miss Zarves for me. Miss Zarves? Asked Calvin. Yes, Miss Zarves, said Mrs. Jules. You know where she is, don't you? Yes, said Calvin. She's on the 19th story. That's right, Calvin, said Mrs. Jules. Take this note to her. Calvin didn't move. Well, what are you waiting for? Asked Mrs. Jules. She's on the 19th story, said Calvin. Yes, yes, we've already established that, said Mrs. Jules. The 19th story, said Calvin. Yes, yes, Calvin, the 19th story, said Mrs. Jules. Now, please take this note to her before I lose my patience. But Mrs. Jules, said Calvin. Now, Calvin, unless you'd rather go home on the kindergarten bus. Yes, ma'am, said Calvin. He then slowly walked out the door. Ha ha, laughed Terrence. Go ahead and take that note to the 19th story. Yeah, give it to Miss Zarves, hooted Myron. Have fun on the 19th story, said Jason. Calvin walked out and stood outside the classroom door, but he didn't know where to go. As you know, when the builder built Wayside School, he accidentally built it sideways. Because remember, he didn't build it this way, he built it this way. And he also forgot to build a 19th story. He built an 18th story, he built a 20th story, but he forgot the 19th story. He said he was very sorry. There was also no Miss Zarves. Miss Zarves taught the class on the 19th story, and since there was no 19th story, there was no Miss Zarves. And besides that, as if Calvin didn't have enough problems, there was no note. Mrs. Jules had never given him the note. Lila, you got something? Okay. Boy, this is just great, thought Calvin. Just great. How am I supposed to take a note that I don't have to a teacher who doesn't exist, who teaches on a story that the builder never even built? He didn't know what to do. So he walked down to the 18th story and walked back up to the 20th story, down to the 18th story, back up to the 20th story. Nope, there was no 19th story. There never was a 19th story, and there never will be a 19th story. Calvin walked all the way down to the administration's office. He decided to put the note in Ms. Zarves' mailbox, but there wasn't one of those either. That didn't bother Calvin too much, however, because he still didn't have a note. He looked out the window and saw Louis, the yard teacher, shooting baskets. Louis will know what to do, thought Calvin, so Calvin went outside. Hey, Louis, Calvin called. Hey there, Calvin, said Louis. He tossed him the basketball. Calvin dribbled up and took a shot. He missed, but Louis tipped it in. Do you want to play a game? Louis asked. No, I don't have time, said Calvin. I have to deliver a note to Miss Zarves up on the 19th story. Well, then what are you doing all the way down here? Asked Louis. Well, there is no 19th story, said Calvin. Then where's Miss Zarves? Asked Louis. There is no Miss Zarves, said Calvin. Well, then what are you going to do with the note? Asked Louis. There is no note, said Calvin. Oh, I understand, said Louis.
This is getting confusing.
That's good, said Calvin, because I sure don't. It is very simple, said Louis. You are not supposed to take no notes to no teachers. you've already done that, so you're good. Calvin still didn't understand. I'll just have to tell Mrs. Jules that I couldn't deliver the note, said Calvin. Okay, that's good, said Louis. The truth is always the best. Besides, I'm not sure I understand what I said either. Calvin walked up all 30 flights of stairs back to Mrs. Jules' class. Thank you very much, Calvin, said Mrs. Jules. Calvin said, but Mrs. Jules interrupted him. That was a very important note, and I'm glad I was able to count on you. Yes, but you see, said Calvin. You delivered that note to Miss Zars on the 19th story? Asked Jason. How'd you do it? What in the world do you mean, how did he do it? Asked Mrs. Jules. He gave Miss Zars the note. Some people, Jason, are responsible. But you see, Mrs. Jules, said Calvin, that note was very important, said Mrs. Jules. It was a note to tell Miss Zars not to meet me for lunch. Oh, said Calvin, don't worry, she won't. Good, said Mrs. Jules. I have a coffee can full of Tootsie Roll Pops on my desk. You may help yourself to one for being such a great messenger. Thanks, said Calvin, but it was really nothing. Okay, so how was it that Calvin was successful in his task? Who can tell me?
Because he was supposed to do nothing, and he did that. He did nothing.
Alex, what do you have to say?
So they said there's no 19th story, but they said go to the 20th story. So is there 31 stories?
Nope. There's
Minus
30
the
stories.
19th?
I know. Well, if there was no 19th,
Or
it would
is
actually
there one underground?
No.
Because I'm kind
The builder was just very sorry. He named it the 18th story. He
because
named it
there's
20th story.
actually 29.
Well, he named it the 18th story. He named it the 20th story. He just didn't name a 19th story because he didn't build one.
Maybe the 19th story is the
Wait,
janitor's
so
closet.
technically he didn't build all stories, so there isn't as many stories as we say there is.
Well,
Wait, so that means that there's no
There's
school
29.
either? So there's no school either?
Stories.
no, there's a well, just the builder's very sorry they forgot to the 19th story.
Wait.
Bella, you got something?
If the 19th floor wasn't...
So the reason he got it, the reason that he did the task is because she wanted to make sure that the teacher, that Miss Zarb doesn't come to lunch with her, and she's not going to come to lunch with her
And why won't she come to lunch?
because she doesn't exist.
That's right. She can't join Miss Jules for lunch because she doesn't exist. So
Wait,
it's true that she won't show up because she's
she doesn't exist, and most of the school doesn't exist. Doesn't that mean that the school itself doesn't exist?
You said
No, you can't have a school with no school, Ryan.
Constance,
Also-
do you have something to say?
Maybe Miss Zarfs is her imaginary friend.
Oh, well, even if
kinda-
she was her imaginary friend, would she show up?
That's weird and creepy at the same time.
I mean, I guess if you have an imaginary
what?
friend and you're like, I'm going to go lunch with your imaginary friend, you're the only one that knows you're going to lunch with the imaginary friend. Nobody else knows, right?
Need to pass the ketchup.
I don't think they're going to be able to do very
Pass the ketchup.
Okay, so
Nothing
that
happened.
was chapter 7. Cal.